All right, so what I want to talk about is using watercolor to paint a tree and actually making it feel like it's luscious. So we want our leaves to feel like it has dimension. We want our branches to feel like it's going in and out of our leaves up here. So what you need in your palette is you need a color for your tree, and then I want 3 colors, because this is what we're really going to focus on, is the leaves. I want 3 colors for your leaves. I want a light value, a middle value, and then a dark value. And this is green with just a little bit of red in it. Red makes green a more shadowy, muddy color. So first we want to just position our tree. We don't want to be like dotting leaves and then somehow it just ends up in the wrong place. So putting your trunk down first will kind of just place where your leaves are going to go. So maybe I want the bottom of my trunk here. And maybe this tree trunk stops about here. I'm not going to do any branches. Okay, maybe I'll keep the end like a little broken up here so it's not like a weird, unnatural straight line. Okay. So I have like the positioning of where I want my leaves to be, which is like pretty much in this area here. So what I like to do first is I like to start with my lightest value, because the darker ones can be painted over the lighter values. However, it's a little harder and near to impossible to get like really light colors on top of really dark colors with watercolor. So I'm going to start with my lightest color, which is kind of this like limey green color. And I'm going to cluster my leaves. And clustering means you like start in one area and you dot. This is stippling. It's like a dot, dot, dot technique, like so. I'm going to cluster in one area and then I'm going to go to another area and then do the same thing. So what we're like really trying to avoid is just doing like one big section so it ends up looking like a lollipop tree. We don't want that. We want it to feel like a little bit more natural. And in nature, things are rigid. They're not super even. They tend to cluster. It's also like the moments where like the tree's in front versus behind. So we want to capture that as well. This is feeling like it's almost dry down here, so I'm not going to be afraid to just do a grouping of leaves right on top of it. I think also what's really important is leaving some nice like negative spaces in your tree, because it's very common when you look at a tree to like be able to like see like through it. So you get those like little moments of light and you can see back there. Feeling like I need a cluster up here. Maybe thicken up this cluster down here. We're almost done with shaping our tree. So now I have the shape of my tree. I got my lightest value, but I also have like the shape of my tree. Great. Okay, so notice I didn't do my branches. Those are going to come very last, so we want to be patient with those. Okay, on to my next value. We do want it to dry. If you don't wait for it to dry, it's going to bleed into, my darker green is going to bleed into my lighter green. So what you want is you want to show like the texture of the different leaves in here. It makes it just feel more bushy, more foliage-like. So if you let it bleed, it might be cool. It might have that like nice watercolor technique, but that makes it feel like more fluid. Like down here, like this feels more fluid, whereas this feels more luscious. All right, so now I'm going to move on to my middle value, and I'm going to very intentionally stipple into a certain section, into a section, yes, but into a section of that section. So what I like to call it is like capping. We're actually not gonna be capping. We're gonna be capping the bottom of our sections. Some weird things come to mind when I think of that. So we're going to be stippling into the bottom parts of my section here. So using that middle green, I'm going to start to dot towards the bottom, because I'm assuming that it is daytime. It is daytime in my painting, so I want the light to be hitting like the tops of my trees. So I am stippling into the bottom sections. And I can actually start to, if I want to, I can start to bring in more of this darker green below my lighter moments as well. So my sections can actually grow a little bit. So right now I'm in this section up here, but I can dot in areas I haven't stippled yet too, since I am below that section. And hopefully now you can see that, yes, this is one section. Just do your best to kind of group leaves together and make them a section. You start to put this green everywhere, what you're losing is you're losing the shape of the tree, right? If you start to put this everywhere, it's just gonna fall flat. So it's really important that you have these different sections, so when you weave your branches in and out, you can see that there's some grouping of leaves that are closer to you and some grouping of leaves that are farther away from you. So we're gonna let that dry again, and we're going to get our shadow color in there. All right, so now we're going to take our shadow color and we're going to bring that underneath our section so we can get a nice round feeling of our leaves in our different sections. So I'm just going to stipple right into the bottom here. And also, since we do have groupings of leaves that might fall like behind everything, you can definitely stipple a section that is very shadowy, that is just kind of like its own section. So maybe there's one back there. And this just brings so much contrast into your tree as well, which is the amount of light and dark that you use. And that is so important to make anything feel three-dimensional. So now our tree went from feeling like pretty flat at first to now it's super rounded. We can see the bottom sections of our leaves and see that we can go back through our leaves, so it has lots of depth as well. It has a lot of dimension. We're just missing the branches, so I do want to show you how you would go about putting branches. So first of all, you want to simplify and not go too crazy, and you want to know immediately that your branches are going to go over your darker sections of your leaves, not your lighter sections. So those are the areas that aren't receiving as much light, so they're like back behind all the leaves that are in front. So we want those to feel like they are behind. They already are feeling that way, but once we start to get those branches on top of those darker sections and then not on the lighter sections, it's really going to take away, and our tree is going to get a lot of depth. So here we go. I'm just going to take a brown. I always like to go lighter than too dark at first with watercolor, so maybe start with a lighter brown, so a little bit more water. Maybe I just pull a branch out of this corner here, and it's going to go right through that darker section, and it's going to stop right before it gets in that light section. And here's the tricky part, is you got to like imagine it went through that light section. So you got to kind of skip a beat and imagine that you're painting your knot, and then you got to carry that branch over and continue. So now we're getting that like weaving in and out feel of the branches. So now we can see it kind of snaked through this bottom section, came back around over here, and then it ended up here. I'm going to do that a couple more times. Branches like to kind of like split apart like the letter Y. So I like to go up the branch and then continue along my way. Maybe I have a branch that's coming right out of the middle part of my trunk. And then maybe just one more for a good example over here. Branches can also split apart in your dark moments too. That might feel nice to have a little Y holding up a nice lighter section of leaves. And actually, a branch can go over that little small section that's dark over here too. That's it. There's my little tree. Hope you enjoyed.